In Fallout New Vegas, players find themselves in a harsh, desolate post-nuclear wasteland surrounded by the scorched sands of the Mojave Desert. If that sounded overly generic, well, that's because it is, but this isn't just any wasteland. This is a desert built from memory. A place where every faction clings to its version of the past, whether it's military, ideological, or mythologized. The old world is gone, but its bones, they still shape the future. It's a world stitched together from relics, and it's exactly in this world that Ruinlust, or our fascination with broken things, takes center stage. Ruinlust is that feeling you get when you stumble across the remains of something once great, and you can't help but to stop and stare, wondering what stories it holds. Part of what makes ruins so compelling is their power to spark our curiosity. They pose immediate questions like, what happened? What was its purpose? How did it all fall apart? Well now, games have the power to take this feeling of mystery and crank it up to 11. As Killscreen notes, in Video Games and the Aesthetic of Ruins, most single-player video games start with a problem. Games cast a player in the role of restorer, someone to set the world right again. Ruins provide an aesthetic setting that matches the core idea behind most games to interact with a broken world and change it through play. Fallout New Vegas doesn't just let you look at ruins, it lets you change them. Over the course of its journey, the player can decide to side with one of the four major actors of the region that fight for the control of one Ruinlust trigger in itself, a war-torn Hoover Dam. The Courier, as it is commonly referred to by NPCs, will encounter many more factions, and his actions towards them will have a deep impact on how the main quest will play out in the end. One of these are the Boomers, a gun-centric tribe of former Vault 34 dwellers that took shelter inside what remains of the Nellis Air Force Base, right outside New Vegas. They are paranoid, isolated, and heavily armed. They don't need help. They don't want outsiders. There is nothing the Courier can offer them to earn the support. Nothing besides their long-lasting dream. If you manage to survive their artillery and earn their trust, their leader Pearl will task the Courier with a quest, Volare. The goal: recover what they call the Lady of the Lake, a B-29 Superfortress bomber that crash-landed and sank in the nearby Lake Mead on July 21st, 1948. Wait, a World War II bomber? At the bottom of a lake? Skeptical, I gathered the ballast devices, a detonator, and a rebreather. I made my way to Colville Bay, cleared the lake larks that roamed the shore, and dove in. There it is. The B-29 Pearl told me about is not a legend. It is right there in a vaguely familiar pose like it is about to take off. I stopped for a moment. This wasn't just a quest marker. It was a story, frozen in time. So many questions were popping up in my head, like, how did this thing get down here? If this behemoth could talk, what stories could it tell? I attached the ballast devices, and from the shore I witnessed this wreckage soar through the waters, a feat I thought was not possible given its current state. That moment stuck with me. Not only I found a ruined World War II bomber in the most unlikely scenario possible, I also managed to move it from its centuries-old resting place. I immediately reached back to Pearl. Finally, she said, all the hours the Boomer spent in flight simulators will be put to good use. She thanked me and offered me the Boomer's help on my future endeavors. I accepted, not thinking much else of this admittedly well-designed side quest. Surely, this wouldn't matter much in the long run, right? My oh my, was I mistaken. Turns out the same plane resurfaces, this time quite literally, during the climax of the main quest. During the second battle of Over Dam, the salvaged B-29 appears no matter the scenario nor the faction you decided to side with. Not just as an easter egg, but as a legitimate power move. That relic you pulled from the deep, that same relic, it's not just part of the world, it changes it right in front of your eyes. Remember the quote from earlier? The core idea behind most games is to interact with the broken world and change it through play. And Volare is that idea made real, but it isn't just a great side quest, it's also a metaphor. Not just for the boomer's dream or for the potential buried in forgotten relics, but for the courier themselves. At the start of the game, you're nothing more than a body in a shallow grave, forgotten, discarded, left to rust in the dirt by a random dude in a checkered suit. And yet you rise. And through your choices, you reshape the fate of an entire region. Just like the bomber, you're pulled from the bottom of a broken world and given the chance to fly again, to matter. This is what Fallout has always been about. A ruined world begging not to be fixed, but to be repurposed, to be made meaningful again. The main quest might be about factions, politics, power, but quests like Volare are what remind you what's really at stake. Can something broken still serve a purpose? Can something ruined still take flight? In Fallout, the answer is yes. You just have to dig deep enough.